Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. We're going to be checking out Action Comics issue 1072 by Mark Waid, Mariko Tamaki, Clayton Henry, Michael Shelfer, Matt Herms, Skylar Partridge, and Marissa Louise. Superman's brief history with Mon-El is revealed as Mark Waid takes us back to his and Mon's first meeting, using the original origin of the character from the 1960s to reintroduce him here in the modern setting, or introduce him to people who might not be familiar with him and his story. In the present, Clark is glad to see his friend is very much alive, but questions him on dressing as Phantom King. Mon decides to reveal all, showing that he's been watching the Superman family thanks to Zardu's resources, getting staticky images of the physical world and how it's changed since he was there, and it's also how he knew Superman would be coming, having seen his fight with the Zone escapee from 2 issues ago. On top of that, he reveals that Zardu is very much alive and being held as his prisoner in the ship's galley. I really like how this is coupled with how Mon talks about his crew, and it kind of paints this picture of who he has become as a man in the Phantom Zone. This isn't the kid that Clark knew way back when, and it's even hinted at early on in the dialogue because he keeps calling Clark Superman. I don't know whether that's just so, the Zoners don't figure out who Clark Kent is, even though they would have no idea who that is anyway, but I like that he's not referring to him as Clark, his friend, he's referring to him as Superman, his quote-unquote work name. This also hints back to the Zone has hardened him in some way that I'm sure Waid is going to explore in the coming issues. Mon soon points out that they are headed for Aetherpolis, a shining light in the sky that Zardu has been taking the worst of the worst prisoners to, and he won't say why. So they are going to go investigate what exactly is beyond that light. I really love how visually this is very similar to Peter Pan. We're on, a flying ship, we're on a big, pirate ship type thing. We're setting our course, the second star to the right and straight on till morning. So the very sort of adventurous feel to it. Back on Earth, Superboy and Superman investigate the fortress, finding that all of the trophies have been taken from the trophy room. The two argue like school children over who should have been cleaning the fortress and whose week it was and who should be looking after the stuff, when both heroes are suddenly zapped away by a power that scans their House of L symbols and decides they are worth taking as well. I like the touch that Keenan is the only one who was brought because of the jacket he's wearing. The Superman family jacket he's wearing has an actual classic House of L symbol on it, because this symbol isn't actually the House of L, it's the yin yang symbols that kind of make the shape of the House of L symbol, but it wouldn't recognize that, so it's a nice little touch. The two heroes are transported into a cell where they find all of the trophies are being kept, finding themselves stuck in a museum exhibit of some type. Back in the Zone, Superman's powers deplete even more as he protects the ship from various monsters as they get closer towards Aetherpolis. There is a very, very cool connection to the most recent Superman issue and to the backup of this issue as well, as both cite freeze breath as a power Superman and any Kryptonian can really use without it fully draining them. It's kind of like a low power. I love it when there's stuff like that between different writers and artists. They're all sort of talking with one another, and it adds, a great through line through all of this. There isn't one writer who's making up rules for the powers while another one's doing something different. There's something that's actually moving through and consistent throughout all of these books, and that's really damn cool. Also probably very hard to pull off coordination wise, since you've got all these different books and things happening and everything, so props to the editor and the writers and the artists for actually managing to do that. Superman soon figures out that Mon-El isn't being fully truthful with him, and after Superman promises not to charge ahead like he would after he's told something, Mon reveals that Aether found the Zone and wasn't happy with what he saw, so he created pockets of actual reality in the Zone, which is the lands that Superman has been seeing and what he thinks is the Zone evolving. This gave the Zoners somewhere to shelter and have some sort of comfort, but despite his good intentions, he failed to realize that the Zoners were actually there for a reason. They are some of the worst murderers in the galaxy, and soon they began murdering each other because that's just what they do. Aether sought to rectify his mistake, and not given the praise and gratitude he wanted for freeing them, he decided to put the Zoners to work, forcing Mon and the others to build things only to then just destroy them and have them build them all again, infesting the area with monsters to hunt and terrorize the Zoners and many other things. Wade dropping this is great, since I assumed Aether would be one of those villains who actually have noble intentions, and that's what it kind of looked like at the start there, where he came into the zone, was shocked at what he saw and wanted to help these people, not, kind of realizing what they are and everything. But he's just been revealed as a guy who just wants praise and to be, seen as sort of like a god king or a savior. That's a really neat development on that villain, especially since we haven't really seen much of the villain. They've been kind of doing like a Wizard of Oz thing with him, where they keep mentioning him and keep saying he's like kind of the high power there now at the moment, but we haven't actually seen him, and we're kind of journeying towards him. Mon-El then reveals that Aether decided to make Zardu his warden, and after some time, Mon led a revolt against Zardu, overpowering the Phantom King and his men. Wade drops a pretty dark tidbit about Mon-El, as it's implied that Mon didn't let Zardu's crew go. He didn't maroon them somewhere or anything. He instead had them all killed, claiming that he's not Superman and the hero wouldn't understand what it's like to live in the zone. I really feel that we are building towards a Mon and Superman coming to blows moment in either the next issue or the issue after that, especially with how much Mon has changed from how Superman remembers him. And now he's broken that one rule that I'm sure Superman would have imparted on him in some sort of way, so I could see Superman seeing that as some sort of betrayal to him. And I'm really intrigued to see where Wade's going to take their relationship from here. The ship meanwhile heads into a pocket of immaterialization, turning Mon and Superman back into phantoms since they've passed out of the reality that Aether managed to create in the zone. And it's then when they realize that if they can turn into ghosts, so can Zardu, and they find the villain has escaped, returning to Aether, who is revealed to be a giant of a being, and he's making more of the homunculus Kryptonian beings that attack Superman in issue 1, literally squishing these people together and melding them into monsters like a god would. Zardu reveals that Superman has arrived, citing him as the son of their original captor, and he knows how they can take care of him, wanting the villain to target his adopted homeworld, but Aether reveals he already is. And I'm guessing this is what these monster beings are for. He's like sending them through, and like they're obviously going to wreak havoc on the Earth while Superman's not there. Very interested to learn more about Aether, especially since we haven't really gotten all that much about him, and his design really took me off guard, since I thought he was just going to be like the hooded being all along, but you reveal his face, and it looks very similar to like a Dominator or something, like a very bat-like monster, which is really intriguing and really cool looking design. As Superman deals with stuff in the Phantom Zone, Supergirl's story continues out in deep space, and she is put on the trail of the spider assassin who kidnapped the judge. Again, the story just doesn't bother telling us anything of substance, continuing the whole "this is so important and big and dangerous and only Supergirl can deal with it" thing that it's been doing for the last 2 parts. We do learn that the judge was created specifically for this prisoner that Supergirl was sent to collect, but again, it's more of that sort of stuff where it's like, oh, this prisoner is so evil and so bad, we had to create this judge to deal with them, and it's just so bad, and it's just, what's going on? Like, just tell us something. Stop with this, beating around the bush. Now, there's also a really confusing part that happens here, since the robot that Kara is with, the robot bailiff that was left on the station, tells her that it won't tell her anything, yet she asks where the staff of the facility are, and this somehow led her to, the way the panels are constructed made it look like she's led to some sort of weird other space station where she is confronted by a gold-horned alien who is literally meant to be the judge, even though it doesn't look like the judge did in the previous issues at all. It's very, very weird. I thought maybe I was missing a page, and I went back and read it and, opened it on a different, a Kindle app and everything, and it's still the same thing. It's just kind of cuts to this. It's very strange, and it feels like we're missing something that we probably should have gotten a lot sooner, so it would make sense. Like we're missing part of a story that was meant to be here, but it's not. Now more spider assassins appear and Kara defends herself, and we get a neat connection to the main story of this and Superman 19 with the freeze breath. But even then, more of the same stuff. Kara is the only one for this mission since it's so dangerous, and Kara has to act fast as the coordinates to the prisoner were leaked to the galaxy and hundreds of ships are racing to get them. And this what makes me think that the shot we get of in the art of this other space station isn't actually where Kara is. She's back on the other space station, but it was the way it's like constructed, it doesn't make you think that. Like immediately when I saw that, it looks like an establishing shot, like we're in somewhere new, but that's not what it is. Really confusing, really damn confusing. So now that all of the galaxy are after this prisoner, Kara's new power makes a return and she uses it on the judge, wiping its memory before she heads off to go and confront this prisoner before anyone else gets there. There is a really neat bit of paneling in this final page that makes it look like maybe Brainiac is involved in this, as we get the classic 3 orbs in the shape of an upside down triangle or like a V shape. It's that classic Brainiac symbol, so I have to wonder if that maybe it's related to that. The circle is actually on the judge's forehead, and that's kind of like a running thing throughout this part of the story, where we get to see it kind of blink out of existence after she dies in this final page. And I mean, it's possible that the Brainiac Queen is the prisoner, since she was blasted off-world in absolute power, never to come back, and this could be the heroes tying up that loose end and kind of making sure she is imprisoned. It would be pretty cool, but again, it's something that it doesn't excuse all the roundabout writing to get here. Like, just say who the prisoner is so we have a clear end goal in sight, since now me and others who are reading this are, speculating, who is this prisoner? Like, well, what's the deal with this prisoner? So when the actual prisoner is revealed, it's probably going to be a big disappointment, since we've kind of hyped ourselves up with, oh, it's the Brainiac Queen, oh, it's this character, and it probably won't end up being worth the runaround, especially since we've had so much runaround. Like, my god. Action Comics issue 1072 had a great mainline story building out Mon's history with the Phantom Zone and his ties to this new villain Aether. I like what Wade is doing with him and showcasing how the zone takes its toll on its inhabitants, hardening them, and in Mon-El's case, making them just a little bit jaded about certain rules that Superman has. I can't wait to see how his story progresses next week and what Aether and Zardu have in store for Earth. The Supergirl story, on the other hand, was just a real nothing story. It started with a great mystery in those first couple of parts, but then has just been dragged out for 2 weeks too long, and the story is not progressing in real meaningful ways at all. There's a real drag on this great adventurous main story. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.